Well, I think it's very important that you have the member companies in CSR Europe working together, working with other stakeholders to define how they can be more socially, environmentally responsible, that isn't all pushed on them from the outside, but they're generally seeing in their company, in their markets, what they can do to drive forward higher standards, and that then all of us learn from that. I think that's a great achievement, precious achievement that shouldn't be lost. But I think it's important as well that that then is reflected back into the context of what's happening in Europe and in the world. You know, there are huge changes at the moment for the better in terms of global approaches on corporate social responsibility, the new guidelines of the OECD, a new understanding on business and human rights that's been achieved by Professor John Ruggie, the movement towards integrated reporting that the financial accountancy and business community is now fully part of. And it's very, very important that our companies in Europe fully engage in those processes, contribute what we're learning through Enterprise 2020 and similar initiatives, but make sure that we are at the forefront of driving forward corporate social responsibility, not just in Europe, but in the world. Well, firstly, I would want to say that it's a remarkable achievement to have a network of more than 4,000 companies. And there were people that said to me a few years ago that when economic bad times came, that CSR would go out the window. It would be a luxury that couldn't be afforded. And here we are in 2012 in the midst of an economic recession, probably the worst, not just in our lifetime, but worse than the 1930s. But the interest in corporate social responsibility, the recognition that we will not get a recovery and a sustainable route out of the recovery unless we adopt social, environmental and human rights policies in business, I think that shows that we've gone a long way. But what we need to do, with the help of the European Union, and yes, the European Parliament can play its part, is to build in real incentives, perhaps some disincentives too, to reward the companies that are trying to do the right thing and to try and have a level playing field so that companies who want to achieve the highest standards do not feel undermined by less scrupulous companies who want to undermine what they're seeking to do. Now that's difficult, but when we get into the detail about, for example, trade support and investment support, access to European structural funds, and we talk about some of the issues around reporting where I do think that we can make progress. I think that in the European Parliament and in the EU we can find practical, concrete ways to really advance corporate social responsibility in a way that is realistic, that is affordable for business, but will ultimately drive standards up. It's very difficult to sort of pin it down to one thing. But, you know, I was, like many people, a child and a student during some of the times where we saw big corporate scandals. And you thought to yourself, you know, there must be a better way. And when I got elected to the European Parliament, you know, I didn't want to just focus on the one or two things that go wrong, but the many things that go right and how we get more of those things happening. And the more that I've been engaged in these debates, I've seen that we've gone from a time where, frankly, the European Union institutions didn't talk about corporate social responsibility at all, where now it is a firm part of the policy agenda in Brussels. Companies in Europe, other stakeholders were talking about it. We weren't. That's changed. And we're now in a position where I believe we are contributing and adding to what companies can do in this field. I want to see us do more. And most of all, you know, I see, as someone who's in the field of government, the challenges, they're greater, they're changing. Climate change is getting worse, not better, whatever the economic problems of the crisis are at the moment. Social challenges are being failed to meet. The Millennium Development Goals will not be met by 2015. And I think people in politics and government just don't feel that. I think people in companies feel that, and I think people in the world think that. And ultimately that's what drives me forward in saying that companies can do better and we want to help them do better in the world of corporate social responsibility.